Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to come to my talk. I'm going to talk about some of my core beliefs in relation to education and how the theory of constructivism fits in with these. I'll evaluate some of the strengths and potential deficits of constructivism, as well as some of the ways that we can apply the principles of constructivism in the classroom. Now, you may have heard this quote before, the origin's unknown, but I'll refer to Grishkovitz in 1993, and I quote, "Give a man a fish and he will eat for a day. Teach him to fish and he will eat always." And what this simple analogy is saying is that if we can equip someone with skills to find things for themselves, rather than simply handing them a blob of information, then we're providing them with the opportunity to find many more solutions many times in the future. Now, I'm an educator who believes in going far beyond simply being a conveyor of information. I believe in giving students the opportunity to develop the skills and characteristics that will enable them to be lifelong learners, both independently and with their colleagues and peers, whether that be in an education setting or a work setting, as well as in their social life, their family life, their relationships, because really when a student leaves school, life doesn't provide them with an educator in every setting that they step into. They often have to be the thinkers, the problem solvers, the explorers, and the constructors of solutions. So with that, I firmly believe that it's important to create learners that are well equipped with critical thinking skills that they can apply to many circumstances. And not only this, but for them to enjoy exploring things for themselves and have fun as they go on their journey of searching for answers. So that's just sort of a bit of a summary of my beliefs as an educator. And I've also just got some strengths of constructivism that I want to go through with you. And as you can see, I've color-coded and highlighted some connections that some of my beliefs have with these strengths. So some of the strengths are that it places the learner in a position of active involvement. It gives the opportunity of discovery learning, which is when we get more value out of experiencing things. We're more likely to retain information that we discovered ourselves rather than something we've just been given. It encourages the development of teamwork and collaboration skills, and these are skills that can be used outside of the classroom in many settings. There's an increased sense of learner motivation because students are finding things out for themselves, and there's that sense of pride and achievement that makes them want to keep going and do more. It makes use of students' prior knowledge and experiences, so it helps them to make connections with something they can already bring to the table, and it encourages deeper level learning. And I've emphasized that last point there about deeper level learning because we'll have a brief look at how solo taxonomy and Bloom's taxonomy work with the idea of constructivism. So this theory of constructivism takes focus on deep learning. When we look at solo taxonomy, we see these stages from pre-structural through to extended abstract, and this far end of the diagram is where students are at a deep level where they're creating and formulating for themselves, and it's this higher order thinking that we aim to develop in applying constructivism. But it's important to remember that constructivism as a whole is very much a walk through this taxonomy from start to finish, not just relating to one isolated part. And a key thing to remember is that it's all done by actively searching and making connections along the way. And there was a study in 1998 by Dengel, I hope I pronounced that right, where they compared exam results for some students that had been taught with a constructivist approach versus a control group who had not. And they found that those who'd been taught with the constructivist approach, their answers were consistent with the much higher levels of solo taxonomy than those who had not. So that's just one example of how we can use solo taxonomy to evaluate a constructivist approach. And similarly in Bloom's taxonomy, constructivism is aiming to help take our students toward these higher level thinking and learning skills, building upon those lower levels along the way. So it's about students analysing and monitoring their own learning, which fits in this higher end of the pyramid. And much like solo taxonomy, the process does rely on having that base knowledge, so starting somewhere and slowly working one's way up to these higher levels. But again, the key being that it's through discovery and in a self-directed manner. Now, as with all learning theories, constructivism does have its limitations and areas that it may not work for every learner and every situation. And that's where some of the other theories of learning may need to come in to help your students to reach their learning objectives. So things such as time management, managing time can be difficult when students are leading themselves. Some students lack group work skills, so they need to be taught how to work with others collaboratively. Not all students have the confidence to step out, ask questions, and make mistakes. It may be hard to keep students on track as each learner is very individual. You need to set clear goals because not all outcomes outcomes will be the same if they don't have that guidance. Students may create incorrect constructs and wrong knowledge, and some learners simply want to be told what to learn. They don't like having to direct themselves, so it can be difficult for those ones, and it can be difficult to evaluate the learning as well. So it's important to have clear goals and expectations when it comes to constructivism. Now I'm just going to quickly go over some of the ways in which the constructivist approach can be actively applied in the classroom to create desired learning outcomes. So I've sort of already mentioned when talking about some of the benefits of constructivism that it's a very active approach and it's very student-centered, and it calls for majority student involvement and less time of the teacher talking. But some of the ways that you might see this in the classroom through discovery learning, inquiry-based learning, collaborative learning, which can then intertwine with peer-assisted learning and even cognitive apprenticeships, where you have an expert in a topic who guides a student as they discover things for themselves, but has that prior knowledge and correct knowledge to help direct them on the right path. So it is important that through applying all these things, it's got to be controlled, and it's got to be self-assessed, peer assessed, and teacher assessed. So just to summarize what I've said there, so constructivism is a theory of learning that really emphasizes maximum student involvement and very active involvement. And there are a lot of benefits to it, but you must allow the time and you must create some boundaries as well so that students don't go off track. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I hope you've been able to take away some valuable information to bring to your own classroom. Thank you.